Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with Austin-based award-nominated multi-instrumentalist, musician, performer, and composer Carolyn Trowbridge. We caught up with this talented vibraphonist and percussionist about her debut and new 2026 album, Found Memories, along with life in both music and education. These days, she is a major part of the Austin, Texas music scene, and on this album, she is joined by a regular quartet that is augmented with several other musicians, most notably flutist Alex Koch, creating ensemble-oriented performances full of color, drama, and unpredictable grooves. She is an energetic, multifaceted artist. Her innovative fluency with her craft creates sonic experiences fueled by a zealous passion for all things sound. From the U.S. to Australia, her dynamic resume includes collaborations with a wide range of artists. Enjoy this interview. Carolyn!
Hello!
What is going on today?
Oh, just here in Austin.
I love it. The new capital of the world.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? I love the vibraphone. We have a very distinct bias on neon jazz. It is one of my favorite things ever, so I'm always so happy to talk to a vibraphonist. It's a wonderful album, so I'm looking forward to getting into it. Thank you for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. So before we get into the album Found Memories, I want to know, 6 years ago, this pandemic was changing all of our lives, changing especially musicians. How did you get through that coronavirus era, and how has it influenced the way that you create and live today?
Yeah, well, at the time I was teaching full time as a percussion teacher at a middle school, and my daughter was 7 months old, so I was a new mom, and I was gigging all the time. So, like staying up all night, feeding my daughter, and then showing up in the morning to teach, and then going to a gig. So it was a lot. I was just like plowing through, like when motherhood hit, and then the pandemic hit, and all of a sudden, I'm not teaching. School's out. My daughter's back home with me, and I'm like, I don't know. I guess I'm a mom. I'm not playing, and so that was, kind of a identity crisis, I think, for a lot of people. But around the corner, just around the corner, I would take my daughters on a walk, and then there was music happening, and I'm like, who is this? So there was a harpist and a saxophonist, flautist, and they would put on music every Monday, and it happened to be Alex Koch and Elaine Barber,
Yeah.
who live right around the corner from me. And so I finally, after a few weeks of catching their shows, I got up the courage to say, hey, I'm a musician, I live around the corner, can I come play with you guys? So they were thrilled to have me come play with them, and I was thrilled to have musician friends around the corner and making music with them. And so we kind of formed a sextet out of that. And then as I kind of started writing my stuff and thinking about recording, I thought it'd be really fun to have them join me on my stuff.
So talk to me a little bit about your beginnings. How did all of this begin for you?
So I always loved music when I was a little kid. We actually lived in the Czech Republic. My dad worked for the State Department, so that was one of our first posts in Prague. And there's classical music everywhere. And I was 7, and my parents would take us to the symphonies all the time, and the operas and ballet. And, it was just after the fall of the Iron Curtain. And I honestly had no idea there was any music outside of classical music, outside of like the Eastern European composers, Tchaikovsky and Mozart, Dvorak. And so I started taking piano lessons in Prague, and yeah, we lived there for 3 years, and then we moved back to the States, and I decided to pick up percussion in band.
So what about the vibraphone? How did it evolve to the vibes?
Yeah, so I studied percussion in college. I did percussion performance, and then came to UT for percussion, my master's in percussion. And after like really being immersed in the concert percussion scene, and playing marimba literature, marimba was kind of my love. But I realized I was kind of tired of playing all the marimba literature that everybody else was playing, and I wanted to kind of, I always loved improvising. So I started taking jazz lessons from a great pianist here, Eddie Hopezal. And I also started playing in a band, but it was kind of like a soulful band called KP and the Boom Boom. And I thought, vibraphone would be really fun to bring into this. So I got a vibraphone, and it turns out it's a very diverse instrument and a lot of different genre. It can be used in a lot of different genres. And so it's kind of my main thing now. I'm playing in different bands and recording, and yeah, it's my voice.
So I'm curious, I remember the first time I heard Bags and Train, and I just heard that warm echo, that warm reverberation of the vibraphone. I was sucked in. What was
Mhm.
the early experience with you with the vibes or marimba that really like made you understand the majesty of that sound?
Yeah, well, marimba really was, I loved concert marimba. I wanted to be a concert marimbist. And the first time I saw this wonderful concert marimbist, Shi Wu, she came to my college, did a master class, and I was just blown away. I loved her performance. I loved her sound. I loved how she was really, singing from the instrument. So that was kind of my marimba. Like, that's when I fell in love with marimba. As far as the vibraphone, having that kind of classical background, when I heard Gary Burton's album Virtuosi, which is like the whole album is classical music, but it's a duo with a pianist. And I, yeah, I absolutely love that album. But that was kind of um, piqued my interest in vibraphone.
So you come from the classic world, but as far as jazz is concerned, what was the first live jazz show you saw that blew you away, that kind of informed the way that you were going to approach either the stage or your career?
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting question. I think for myself, I don't really classify myself as, a particular genre.
Hmm.
Um, I am really just writing from my heart. As I wrote this album, especially, I wasn't like, okay, this is a jazz album. I need to write jazz music. It was really just like all my influences at once. So, there's a little jazz influence. I maybe it's more jazz because there's improvising in it. But there's also a lot of classical influence, percussion ensemble influence, and my favorite genre is exotica. So this album has been described as like neo-exotica. Um, so yeah, I can't really say that there was like one particular moment that
Sure.
kind of strike me as like, okay, I'm going this route. I'm going to be a jazz artist.
So before you embarked on this album and playing, you were teaching middle school, you said, correct?
Yes.
So was it seeing that concert outside that really was the big U-turn, the big fork in the road for you that it has kind of spurned the album and you're playing?
Yeah, I mean, I uh, teaching percussion, teaching in Texas, the band programs in Texas are so competitive. And, I was teaching at this middle school for 15 years, and I love the kids. I love the band program, but I didn't love that it was really about competition. And at a certain point, teaching Zoom lessons for a year, I kind of realized, you know what? I love the kids, but I'm tired of this, like, I'm teaching the kids how to win. I'm not teaching the kids how to be musicians. So I kept a few students. I kept a few piano students because I love teaching, expression and musicality. Um, but at the time, I had my second kid, my son, and I was also getting really busy with recording opportunities, for various artists. And I really needed the flexibility to be able to, have rehearsals during the day and have, a day where I could go into the studio if an artist was in town who needed vibraphone, and also be there for my kids. So I kind of stepped away from teaching, but I'm still like, I love coming in to do master classes and teaching, summer camps and kind of the guest appearance
Yeah.
aspect.
So it must be amazing to make this album with all those players that you just ran into during the pandemic to see all of this comes full circle on the album.
Yeah, yeah. So I started when I wrote the tunes, um I had my buddy Brian Sunderman, who's the guitarist on the album. We've been playing together forever. We were in grad school together, so we've been really great friends. So I would have him come over, he lives close by, so I'd be like, "Come on over, I want to try out this new tune." And then we decided to get the drummer, Nick Tasso, to come in and hear what it would sound like with drums, and Mario. And Mario, I also play with in a lot of different bands. So that was kind of the core group, the quartet that we were, performing with. And then for the album, we thought it would be fun. I wanted to get the sound of the harp and the flute and the vocals. And so yeah, it's the musicians on that album they come from all corners of the Austin music scene.
Yeah.
Elaine Barber's the harpist for the Austin Symphony, Alex Koch, amazing jazz artist. Nick Tasso is really in the cumbia Latin music scene, and Brian Sunderman, the guitarist, he's does more like he does wedding bands and funk bands, and so I love how diverse the band is that made the sound of the album.
So that's the first big release for you. What are you ultimately hoping the listener gets from this album?
Well, I think my goal as a writer and performer is just to connect with the listener. I'm not trying to be flashy. I'm not trying to write all these like complicated chord changes, but I'm really just writing from the heart. And I feel like, these melodies are really memorable and catchy, but, they all have kind of a unique sound to it. And so I just hope to, connect with the listener, and yeah.
The one thing about all of these epicenters in America that have music in it, like for instance with Kansas City, you know, jazz was kind of born in New Orleans and grew up in Kansas City. It's continued that lineage all the way into today. It's a very support. But if you were to describe the scene that you're in Austin right now, because there's so many thoughts about South by Southwest, the Austin city limits. There's all of these things going on. A lot of people are moving there. How would you characterize this place that you once lived in and have come back to as kind of a bustling metropolis? You're releasing an album. What is it like to be in the scene, and what is the scene like?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, the music scene is so diverse. I mean, there's a jazz scene, there's, various world scenes, there's an, you know, African scene, Zimbabwe scene. I play in an Ethiopian jazz group. And then there's a lot of Americana and blues, and it's such a great community. And I love, I definitely have my toes dipped in a lot of scenes. There's a great classical scene, indie classical scene. Um, so yeah, I think it's a very genuine community, and I think, musicians love to invite people from different scenes to join their projects. And yeah, I love being here. I can't ever leave Austin. I don't think
Yeah.
I'll ever be able to leave.
So let me ask you this. What do you like the best about being a professional musician? What gets you up every day? What motivates you to make this music and to push this album out into the world?
I just love expressing myself through music, through musicality. I love playing with, I think making music with my friends is the best feeling in the world. Um, I love practicing. That's my weakness.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I'm just excited to share my voice with people, and again hope to connect, and make some kind of impact on anyone.
So the one thing about the vibraphone is from the out, you're inside the fishbowl making this music, but all of us on the outside feel this elegance in this instrument that just has a way of kind of tying everything together in a group. What is it? What's the thing about the vibraphone that maybe people may not realize about being a player, about making that music? What's the most interesting thing about playing this instrument every day?
Well, it's a very awkward instrument to play. I will admit that.
Yeah.
I remember when I was in high school, um, I kind of got thrown on the vibraphone. That was my first time playing vibraphone in marching band. We did a Gloria Estefan show. And I never played for mallets before. I had, lived overseas for the 3 years before coming back to the States. And they were like, Carrie, you play vibraphone, you know how to play piano. And I just remember it being very awkward. There's a pedal, you have to be really close to the instrument. It's hard to move around. But when you get past all that, it's just a very expressive instrument. I love the sound. I love the feel. I love, there's a lot of intricacies to it and I love just like being able to, find those intricacies to express the music.
The one thing about America today, all of us are immigrants one way or another, and we've all come from different places, and I think we fully understand what's going on here. And I find that music has been a real escape. It's been a really good thing for not only musicians, but for all of us that are watching you to escape into it for a little while, take ourselves away from the headlines, to feel like we're connected in this country that we love. What does it mean for you? Do you feel a heightened sense of making and performing and delivering music in 2026 America that's a little different from, say, last year or a couple years ago?
Definitely. Yeah, yeah. I that's another part of like connecting with the audience. I often and have a lot of ups and downs, especially when the album came out. That was like a really tough time in the news media. And I often think, what can I do? I don't know, but my daughter, who's 6 now, she'll ask me all the time, what is your superpower? And I say, I make people happy by playing music for them.
Yeah.
So I just hope that, I can bring some happiness. I can pull people out of, away from the struggles. And there's still a lot of beauty in the world, but it's sometimes a little more quiet, but you can find it in music, I think. Really
Yeah.
brings people together.
For sure. So you have quite an eclectic music palette of not only playing but liking different styles of music. But if you were to get into a time machine and go back in time and see one concert anywhere that anyone performs, where are you going? Who do you want to see?
I would love to see Esquivel. I'm a big Esquivel fan. I love all the sounds. I love his, he's fun and quirky and creative and dramatic. And yeah, Esquivel and Les Baxter are like two of my favorite artists of all time.
So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends, fans, everyone that plays on the bandstand, everyone that you educate, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Well, sometimes when you're a parent, it's hard to remember who you
Uh-huh.
are.
I get it.
Two little kids. Um, but I feel like I'm a fun person. I very easygoing with with the music stuff and with the band, and I love if somebody in the band has an idea, I love to hear it. I love to hear everybody's voice in the band and express hearing the music in different ways, and a lot of I've played this music in different settings, like in a steel band. As a like string quartet. So I love, just hearing other people's perspectives of my music. So yeah, fun, easygoing, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I love the cover. You got the cat silhouette, you got the bird, you got the sea creature, you got the purple haze. What does the cover of Found Memories mean, and who made it?
Yeah, so my friend Fumi Sugawara, he's local. He's a great guitarist and artist. He's from Japan, but has been in Austin for a long time. And I had seen his stuff. He does a lot of show posters and album covers. And, I didn't really know what I wanted for this cover, but I knew Fumi could do something great and bring it to life. So when we first met, my idea was like the Found Memories would be kind of the centerpiece, very vibrant, and then they're kind of spilling out of the centerpiece. So in the centerpiece, which is the cat, that the first track on my album is Thank You for the Memories, Thank You for the Laughs, which was dedicated to my cat who lived to be over 20 years old. So that's Misha. And then in the inside that vibrant, colorful cat, you have the turtle from Turtle Heart. The jellyfish is kind of spilling out, and then Chugi's engine, the train, the grackle. I think that was all of them. But yeah, as they kind of spill out of the centerpiece, they kind of fade. These memories kind of fade. So that was the concept behind
Nice.
the
So
cover.
if anybody wants to get a copy, obviously it's streaming everywhere. If anybody wants to get a copy, they want to catch you live, any of the other good business to keep up with what's going on in your world, where do they go?
Yeah, you can check out my website, carolyntrowbridge.com. I'm really great at keeping up on Instagram with posting my shows, Carolyn Trowbridge Music. Yeah, I can get it off Bandcamp, and reach out to me on my website if you want a copy of it, and I can get that out to you.
Okay. Carolyn, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for taking a minute out. Best of luck with the release. I'm looking forward to profiling it on Neon Jazz.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players and minds in Austin, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Carolyn for swinging on by the show. If you want to hear more Neon Jazz interviews, you can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Subscribe to us at YouTube, and for everything Neon Jazz, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.